There's absolutely no difference. I think I think the logic behind it is to basically demystify and also destigmatize the conversation about these phenomena, whether they are UFOs. But and we could talk further about that. But one of the biggest problems we are recognizing, I've recognized, is that we have a lot of professional, pilots, people in the military that are afraid of uttering the word UFO. So by kind of desanitizing the language, I think this is an approach to basically get more people to actually talk about what they're seeing. I would say probably a lot of credit has to go to Harry Reid, who kind of started a lot of this movement a couple of years ago by putting money to study the UAPs a couple of years ago. I think the other thing that really has happened is there is a renewed sense of Congress that we need to know what's going on, and us bearing ahead in the stand is not going to help approach to find an approach to this. I'm not of the person to say there's definitely some little green men in these UAPs out there. What I'm saying is, if we have a problem, the problem is we have these unidentified objects, and if you have a problem like that, then you need to have a solution to do that. In order for you to have a solution, you need to have a study and an actual treat this like a real potential threat that it is. When I say it's a potential threat, it could be some really advanced Russian weaponry, some really advanced private weaponry. It could be natural things that are happening in the nature that are affecting our radars, or yes, it can be extraterrestrial at the same time. Okay, well, it's not as cool as it sounds. But look, it's essentially a team that is to investigate occurrences of UAPs, right? And the most important thing for their job to do is to gather information and gather information quickly. And what usually happens for a lot of these instances is that the information gets very stale, or people lose their nerve to talk, which is also bad. And then the information gets stale again. So this organization, this rapid response, would eventually be there to collect information. And the information collection is really important because the next step is actually the most important, is the data that comes from it, right? The reason we don't have definitive answers, besides that there's been in my opinion, an obvious attempt by the government not to look for answers, is that even when we do, we don't have any kind of real data. When is this occurring? How often does it occur? Where does it occur? What are the similarities? And sometimes, it's happening to Air Force personnel and it's happening to Navy personnel, but maybe it happens to Army personnel, but they don't talk to each other, right? So the idea of us having a department-wide office is for us to be able to take in all this information so then we can turn around and analyze it. And once you have a good analytical basis to make decisions from, then you could actually move to next steps. It's more of a national security. It is under my jurisdiction as the chairman of Intelligence Special Operations. It's the committee itself, the subcommittee, Intelligence Special Operations, is new, and it's part of my jurisdiction. So of course, if it's part of my jurisdiction, I'll investigate it. We knew that there was a report coming out from the Department of Defense, so I arranged a classified briefing of that report, and taking information from that report is what helped me create the amendment that you now find in the defense budget that largely is also aligned with Senator Gillibrand. Well, I think the government is now moving in the right direction in dealing with UAPs, UFOs, whatever you prefer to call them, is that now that we're actually going to be looking at the data and actually looking, essentially for them, not in the traditional sense that we're going to have people exploring, but we're actually going to be looking through past instances, past witnesses, past encounters, whatever it is, and be able to actually, again, form good data so they can make some good decisions off that data. Whereas before, there really wasn't a concentrated effort by the federal government to figure out what was going on. If anything, their goal was just to ignore and or not talk about it unless it was a direct national security threat. When I mean it's a direct national security threat, there was something that they weren't able to identify, but they thought was maybe Russian or Chinese or some type of threat, and then they would actually go look at it. Now we're actually going to take a real across the board look at everything that we encounter.